So who are we?
And who or what will we be in the future?
We're not talking about future as in tomorrow or next year, but the further future when our consequences of the human activities might change us dramatically.
And when we think about the future you, we're interested in the whole you, the network of bacteria, fungus and other microbes that creates the whole you. And we're inspired when scientists call this the human superorganism.
So we are super altogether. This different way of looking at ourselves as a massive living thing inspire our artwork and vision. The superorganism concept let us explore endless possibilities human can evolve into with the help of disruptive technologies.
And so when we think about the popular views of the future that were given often in films, for instance, they're often clinical or sterile and out of sync to what we actually are as the human superorganism. So we collaborate together and use our different cultural lenses to try and form new visions of that alternative us in the future.
So I grew up in Tokyo, the ultimate artificial city. I was reading manga, watching animation, and playing games with my friends and family, happily living in multiple artificial world. Even in a public toilet, there's this machine which makes this water flushing sound to erase any of the natural human sound. And then I left Japan and I came to the realization that this sterile world is somehow out of sync with my biological myself.
And I grew up here, on a farm in the Fens in Cambridgeshire. And as you can see, it's really flat. But it gives us space to observe the changing cycles of nature and the seasons. But this too is artificially sustained with a network of drains and pumping stations that maintain this landscape from reverting back into a marshland that it formerly was. As a consequence, it's continually sinking and at the risk of soil erosion as well.
So, as artists, we think a lot about the future. And when we talk about the future, we never try to solve the problem nor predict the future. We are creating, again, this space for us to explore endless possibilities human can evolve into. And this can change according to our desires and dreams. Back in the day, we used to be a hunter-gatherer, and 10,000 years ago, we made a big leap in human evolution. We set the first seed and started to store the crops. Here began the agricultural revolution.
And so when we think of the future, we're actually really excited about what our dreams and desires reveal about today and us today. So our alternative visions that we create in our work try to unveil and unmask what we are as human animals and the human condition, but also how these visions can create alternatives to how we might approach our biggest problems today, such as how do we feed an overpopulated world?
So here it is, our first collaboration project called Algaculture. When we thought about the food shortage in the future, it was very important for us to change the question from what we will eat to how do we fuel our body alternatively. So big inspiration came from this amazing organism called Algaculture. It's a sea slug which evolved to have a new organ on its back containing the algae. With this new organ, they are able to get the energy from the sun from through this algae. It's like photosynthesizing of the plant.
And who wouldn't want to gain that ability? That's a pretty amazing organism. And for us, it was our challenge, and this is our first prototype suit that we created to really explore the potential relationships between the body and the algae. For instance, the algae can absorb our carbon dioxide from our breath, and in return supply us with oxygen. And then also the suit allows us to harvest that algae to create food.
When we created this symbiosis suit, we quickly realized we need to reimagine ourselves in this agriculture world. The moment you wake up in the morning, perhaps your bed doesn't look like your bed anymore, to where your house will be situated, maybe near the water. Maybe we need to redesign our city completely to follow the journey of the sun.
And then we were looking for the perfect body to power our suit. And we turned to the opera singer for the amazing lung capacity and the controlled breath. At the same time, we were really inspired by research by Professor Charles Spence on the sonic enhancement of taste, which added an extra input into the project. And we collaborated with composer Matt Rogers to work on a new score for the Algae Opera that used some of these techniques of the sonic enhancement of taste. And here you can see a chef harvesting the algae produced from the suit, from the algae absorbing the breath of the singer. That algae is then made into sushi to feed back to the audience. And as the audience is eating and listening to the song, her song is heightening your bittersweet taste perception. In the further future, the ultimate aim is how can that algae really integrate into our bodies? And so this is our further future vision of how the human superorganism is added to with the algae to give us new abilities. In making the work, we quickly realized we're going to have to sacrifice some of our traditional food cultures currently, but there is endless possibilities to create new ones.
This superorganism concept doesn't just stop at our artwork. We also aim to work in a superorganism way. This inspiration came when we collaborated with the team of the scientists working on a project called Cleaning Land for Wealth. We were really excited to see that different technologies, science and disciplines and organisms working together to create this system which might become a big leap in human evolution. Scientists were from the background of plant biologists, nanotechnologists, synthetic biology, bioenergy, and process intensification. So they were looking at how to clean the contaminated site, like ex-mining site. They used the plant to absorb the contaminating metals like arsenic out of the land and then harvest the plant and feed to engineered bacteria. This engineered bacteria has the ability to extract out the contaminating metals and convert into nanoform. Once the metals are in nanoform, then it becomes suddenly useful for humans, like being catalyst for hydrogen fuel cell. They were making this thing as a circular economy to sustain by itself, but for us it was really exciting to see that it's erasing the mistakes of the past.
And it was from here, the erasing the mistakes of the past, that we were inspired to imagine, okay, so we've got this clean land and we don't want to make these mistakes again. So what are the new ways that we can relate to how we extract resources from the environment and how we could be in the world around us? So we formed a concept that's called the transformosphere, and we used it to navigate all of the different individual technologies that the scientists were using, and also to get a grip on the sense of scales that they were using. So it ran from the nano, the very small, to the planetary level. And in terms of timescales, they were talking about the past and the future. And for us, the transformosphere then enabled us to really critically engage with what are the consequences of when all of these individual technologies come together into a whole, but also a space for us to imagine how we can do things differently, how we can act differently in the environment and to make things, but also a new way of being for us.
So how can we live differently, not to make same mistakes again? How can we extend our human ability to be able to thrive in this contaminated world? This led to our current project called Landscape Within. And we were so excited to see the ability of this engineered bacteria, which can extract out the contaminated metals such as arsenic and platinum and convert into this nanometals. And these are developed by Horsford Lab at the University of Edinburgh. We also wanted to learn what is the effect of the contaminating heavy metals. So we invited Dr. Susan Hodgson, the environmental epidemiologist at Imperial College London, who investigates the health effect of heavy metal contamination. With the workshop with her, we learned that these contaminating heavy metals can affect our body but also our mind. For example, the long-term exposure of arsenic can cause us cancer. The mercury can affect the neurological development of the fetus. And finally, lead can lower our IQ level.
So once we started to learn about the health effects of these heavy metals in our contaminated land, it really for us redefined the boundaries of the body in the landscape. And when we imagine and see the gut, it really is a tube within our body, inviting the external landscape into our internal landscape through food. And we started with 2 food plants that are important to us culturally. The rice plant that has an amazing ability to absorb arsenic from contaminated land, and wheat that similarly can absorb lead.
And when we think about these contamination as waste and we think we throw away the waste, it's never really away. It can come back to us at some point. We witness this in a supermarket where foods are sourced on a global scale. For example, fish. Some of the fish travels all over the world, exposing themselves to the contaminating mercury, and then it can come back to our dining table. We're really living in a borderless world.
Yeah, so a borderless world, but also we live in the Anthropocene era. An era that's being remade by humans and literally remaking the soil beneath our feet. And so an important question that we asked ourselves in the Landscape Within project was, if there is no escape from the contaminated world, how can we adapt to live in a world of our making?
So we created this external digestive machine which can extract out the heavy metal contamination out of our food. We're using this host for labs engineered bacteria. In this case, we're using rice, and these bacteria will be extracting out the arsenic from our rice, which creating safer food to eat.
But why stop there? Because we're using technology, in this case, and engineered bacteria to mediate between body, food, and landscape. There's new potentials, and so for us, we inserted fluorescent genes into the bacteria, so our food could potentially tell us if it's safe or not to eat, creating new dining experiences of eating in the dark.
And then for the further future, we imagined ourselves to have an organ which contains these engineered bacteria, which is cleaning out the heavy metal contamination from our body. But also it allows us to mine our body to create the new material for the future.
So, to sum up and return back to our opening questions.
So who are we?
Well, as a human superorganism, we are a collaboration, and a collaboration of different organisms, different technologies. As people, we're a collaboration with different people, with different disciplines and different backgrounds. But who or what will we be in the future?
With the Transformosphere idea, we create this space for everyone to join the exploration for endless possibilities human can evolve into, which can change according to our dreams and desires. And it might ask us to sacrifice some of our humanness.
However, is it sacrificing our humanness, or is it just asking us to redefine what it is to be human?
Thank you very much.